At least I didn't see a question. I didn't see a file. So I might have missed it, but I didn't see anything.
Hey, Gavin, now can you hear me? First message in the chat, so can't hear you. But I think that was OBS. I had it muted. I forget why I had it muted. I usually don't do that. Forget what I was recording. What was I recording?
Or does your person streamer, does he have a question that I watched?
He was just saying about he can't hear. He says, yeah, he can hear. Okay. I just forgot to turn the mic on also on OBS. I wonder if that was the issue or something that weird.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
I mean, that would be kind of a weird bug, but who knows? Yeah, I mean, the only thing I've been really working on is this new project for this one game called Farm RPG, and I've been getting a ton. I don't know why. Like, the video did well, and then, like, out of nowhere, like, people just started, like, commenting every single day on the video. I was just like, whoa, like, it must have been shared somewhere or something and got a lot of oversight. So I've been doing, I was doing 2 experiments this week that, the one is the send me any script you want and I'll run it on my old laptop. Obviously I'll be in airplane mode. And it does have to be auto hotkeys, so if anybody wants to send me a script, it can be fun, it can be evil. It's just going to be just for fun kind of thing. And then the other thing too is for Farm RPG, I actually wanted to see like about being banned. So like I straight up in the game, in the chat, said I'm going to automate fishing completely. And then I emailed the mods telling them that I automated fishing, and I still haven't been blocked. I'm like, it's so funny. So I was like, okay.
Yeah, you know, every place has a different level of their mods being active, right? And what they will and won't, ban you on or shadow ban or whatever.
Yeah. Oh, the video is still up.
I was just now. I was working on it. And I can't show the Excel file. I have to create a new file. But I have a script that goes and pulls all the registrants, like for this event or any Zoom event, and then I highlight the ones that I want to send to, and I hit a hotkey, and it will loop over each person, contact info, and write the Outlook email to them, which generally speaking is not a big deal. It works great, flawlessly as far as I don't touch anything. However, because I'm interacting with Excel and I'm using the selection, what's selected, if I happen to, let's say I have a list of 120 people, if I click somewhere else dynamically while that script is running and looping over them, it will screw it up. It will actually jump to the new selection. And so I realized what I need to do is to go to Excel, get a list of the email addresses, the people with their first name or whatever I want to do in the mail merge, and shove that all into an object. Then loop over sending the emails, because that's what takes a little bit of time, because it's generating an individual email with the mail merge. And so anyway, I was working on that of nesting an object. So I have all the contact info available that I can loop over. But
is that what the guy from last week was talking about, or the last time I was on? Wasn't he asking something like that for Zoom?
I'm trying to remember. No. Well, yeah, I mean, other than it is Zoom related, yes. He was looping over the API call to pull contacts, just because most endpoints, when you're talking about a web service API, I was actually talking to my friend Gabe Cook the other day, and which is what I used to do as well, we were talking about APIs, and he had kind of forgotten that there's programmatic, like the Windows API, right? Or there's an API to connect to Python. Those are also APIs. Then there's the web service APIs, which is what we're talking about with the Zoom thing of you're programmatically connecting to a server, and setting a query and getting return points. And I really wish they had come up with a whole different term, just because it really confuses people.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Hi, John.
Hi, Drew. Hi, Thom.
Hello. You missed all the fun this morning. Our mic's not working. But at least we got on time. Or at least I did.
Good. Doing more VBA than AutoHotkey in the last days, but always confusing when you switch language.
Yeah.
In VBA, when you do if, you need to put and. Always forget to put then at the end of the if statement. A lot of things like that.
I mean, just to take it a little further, right? You could have a hot string that says, "Hey, if Excel or whatever is active, and I type if in a space, put if the then," right? I mean,
yeah. But the VBA editor could do it. It does things like putting the and statement. So why don't we put the then statement? Yeah, I don't know if a string works well in this editor.
I think
sometimes, yeah.
I haven't had any problems with it. Granted, it's been a long time since I've done one in actually the VBA stuff, but it's to me, it's not like Studio, which that's the one Achilles heel of Studio is just don't work well.
Yeah, and the other thing is column equal, no column, just equal. When you assign a value to a variable.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I'll always putting so. But the other thing about AutoHotkey I'm kind of fighting against is to play with the content of an edit control, the text inside an edit control, and just found by looking at the forum, and I posted something about that yesterday. The edit control, when there are end of lines, in AutoHotkey, end of lines are just line feeds, one character that does the line feed. But in the edit control itself, viewed from Windows, it is carriage return line feed. And there's a function that allows you to get what is the current selection of text inside the edit control, so the beginning and the end of the selection. But these numbers are offset by the number of carriage return that there is in the edit control. So if you get the text from the control in AutoHotkey, there is no carriage return. It's only one character at the end of each line. But the position that is returned by this function is counting the carriage return characters. So there's an offset growing with the number of numbers. So it's kind of a little nightmare with that. So I have a post on the forum. I hope that there's a guy who published a library called Edit. This is very good with a lot of function to play with this edit control. So I asked a question about their ways to do what I want to do. I don't want to go into the details here, but that's what I worked on. Hi, Matthew.
Hey, everybody. How are y'all?
They're good. Getting some snow here today.
Oh, lucky you.
It seems that in Florida it's very cold today.
Florida, you got Florida, Texas, and where are you at, Thomas?
Delaware. So way up north.
I'm in Quebec, so here the snow is our everyday thing for 6 months a year.
Yeah, we're supposed to get like 9 inches, I think, today. So, good amount. So, good thing I don't need to go anywhere.
I don't miss that. I lived in Oregon for several, and DC, and both those got way more snow than I ever cared to experience.
So remember that thing last week I was showing you guys, the redial menu thing?
Oh, radial menu, whatever.
Yeah. I actually found out that version I was showing you is not auto hotkeys, so I just wanted to throw that out there. Because the original version I liked wasn't auto hotkeys, and I was looking at this trying to figure out, I was like, this is pretty good, GUI stuff for auto hotkeys, so it ended up actually not being So it's like, I guess they started a whole new project and kind of redesigned it from the ground up, or, if it's even the same people, I'm not sure. So yeah, I found that out from somebody on Reddit who mentioned it, and I was like, oh. I was like, I just assumed it was still auto hotkey, and they didn't change it.
Well, and I don't know about you, but I know you've been dabbling in some other languages. I've seen on your channel you'll mention some other languages and stuff. But I don't, even though the vast majority of what I do is auto hotkey, I'm perfectly fine if I find something else in another language that works, right, and using it. It's not, auto hotkey is not magic. I just know it well. So if I can find something in it that compared to another language, I'll stick with it because I can edit it and manipulate it.
Yeah, and that seems, a lot of people are like, Python is more of kind of like a data-driven language, but like people are so obsessed with using it for automation. And I'm like, which is fine. I was like, Python has way more libraries or modules, I guess they're called, than auto hotkeys does by a long shot. But if I can find a way to do an auto hotkeys, fine. I'm gonna do it there first versus doing Python. Like creating a hotkey in auto hotkeys is literally one line of code with the dots, but in Python it's like 30 lines of code to create a hotkey or something crazy like that.
Yeah. Oh, how to repeat a shortcut. I see someone commenting on my channel.
I think he knows how because he
Yeah.
repeated the question 5 times.
That's what I was gonna say.
But yeah, back to your point, Tom. Now, I have a post in the forum, and someday I have to make it into a video, where I used auto hotkey within Python using the Python API, and then I flipped it and used Python within auto hotkey. So you can kind of have the best of both worlds. You can still do your stuff in Python, like slicing text strings in
True.
Python is amazing. But it's nice having a hotkey to trigger, that. And to your point, it's like, even actually in Python, there's, I think, a library called send keys, if I remember right. And you can kind of send like hot strings, like send text. But
Oh yeah.
again, to your point, like it's just not nearly as stable. It's easy to use. And yeah.
I think you got a spammer in your chat.
One point to that though, Thomas, and I think just trying to play devil's advocate here, is with Python. I mean, AutoHotkey is my go-to choice as well, because I work in the corporate world. I'm going to be using Microsoft Windows. This is where I'm at. Then there's not really much point for me to try to do something in Python when I can do it a lot easier on
Yeah.
AutoHotkey. But I do think for developers or anybody that's trying to learn how to make a tool that they can share, they go to Python because it's cross-platform. So if they want to go, if
That's
they want
right.
to make a tool that's going to be usable on an Apple computer or a Linux and a Windows machine, then Python would be the way they could go, and AutoHotkey is exclusively usable in Windows.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I always forget which languages are cross-platform because I don't have a Mac or a Linux computer. Well, I have a Linux computer. I just haven't used it in probably 10 years. That is true. I never thought about it. I always forget that Python is good for all. And that is definitely a big selling point. So most people like to code in on a Mac. A lot of people, it's like kind of the go-to for a lot.
Well, and that's where also it depends on who's going to be using your code. And if I'm writing something, I'm going to be giving it to colleagues that all have Windows computers, then who cares, right? Like, I mean, I understand your point, Matthew, right? If you're building a bigger, like for Jean, if there was a way with Quick Exit Pop-Up to have made it to work on Macs as well, then that would have been pretty cool. However, the two don't have the same stuff available, and programming that would have been a nightmare, or at least so much more difficult. So I think
AutoHotkey is using so much Windows functions, so that porting AutoHotkey code to something else is just not realistic.
Yep.
yeah, just the other day, Gabe, my friend, we were he was using Maestria notify function, and he was having some problems. So we jumped on Zoom and we were chatting, and I explained to him, I'm like, what was really cool about this function was he wrote it, Maestria wrote it like an hour. And that was because it uses the Windows notification object and you use an API connect to it and do a lot of really cool stuff with very little code, right? So it's a great simple way to be able to do that kind of stuff.
And coding for Mac is so complex. There's a lot of layers. What you do, I've done some of it many years ago, so I don't know if it was simplified since that time, but it was very complex.
Well, I can tell you, so for one of our businesses, my partner and I, we have a real estate business where we find off-market properties. And so Maestria built us an app in Android for iPhones. I'm sorry, Android phones. And then he also built it for an iPhone. And he said, like, if you ever, ask me to program for the iPhone again, just please shoot me instead. I mean, it was so much harder, to do. So I don't, that's not quite the same thing as you're saying, John, but it was really much more complex.
I kind of wish I had a Mac because I've been wanting to try like testing some stuff ideas on there. So I had a Mac way back when, and I had a program called Wine, which lets you run Windows stuff. And I wonder if you could run auto hotkeys within it using like image searches or something. I wonder how well that would play out.
I have a Mac here somewhere. I could at some point connect it and just put it like on TeamViewer, because that's what I did with Maestria. I had the Mac and then he just remoted in, which is of course part of why it was slower too. But if you really wanted to do that, we could, I could set it up where you could just log in and.
I mean, if we found some way to magically make auto hotkeys work on Mac, I think people would be so happy. It would have to probably be all image searches though, which is not the most reliable thing usually.
No, because you can run Windows on a Mac, right? Like it's had that for 20 years.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I mean, now granted, it's not going to have all the same functionality, but it still is Windows. You still can connect to the objects and snap, right? But you couldn't automate the Mac side of things.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
So sure, yeah.
Because I was wondering if you could open Wine, because Wine was originally Linux, but they have a Windows version. Open Wine, minimize it, and have a script run using image search or pixel search. But I'm not sure if auto hotkeys would be which screen it would be looking at. I don't know. It's worth a try. I know there's a few different things. There's Boot Camp. I forget the other ones that are pretty popular, but I just remember Wine. Or a remote desktop.
Replying to Anamon I think it will work in the Windows environment on the Mac, but not outside of that.
Yeah, I'm thinking like the only thing that might work. Yeah, definitely. You wouldn't be able to do the API or comms or anything like that, but using like an image search or a pixel search, that's the only way I could think that maybe work. But I've never really looked into how it's doing it, if it's looking with a virtual machine at least. I've never played with auto hotkeys in a virtual machine, so I'm not sure how well.
Have some built-in tools that do like hot strings and shortcuts. So again, if you're really not getting a lot of the big benefits out of using auto hotkey in a Mac,
Yeah.
you might as well just program it in the Mac side of things.
No, that's true. I just want to kind of do an experiment to see.
If you wanted to, have like, let's say, Outlook and Excel running in the Windows environment on a Mac, you could use COM and automate, like I was talking about earlier, automate your emails or whatever, right? I mean, there's plenty you can do. It's just, you're just not going to automate the Mac side of things.
Yeah. No, you could definitely run it in like a virtual machine.
John, any updates on your clipboard tool?
No, just fighting with the end of line issue that I was talking about earlier. Because in the editor, I want to do things like find and replace, so I'm kind of trying to do a small editor with some usual function features that you have in an editor. So and I've never worked on this before, so it raised some new challenges like these end of lines things.
I remember when I was first learning regex and trying to use a regex to, like, get rid of blank lines with that, and it was really frustrating until, like, I was using Cite at the time. I told Cite to display the end of line characters, and that was when I finally had that aha moment, like you're saying, John, is, oh, I was looking for, /r/n, and it really is just /n, or vice versa. It just depends the program you're in. And yeah, that was so confusing for a while. Because you can't see it, unless you turn that on, and yeah. Let me share. And Jean has been very kind with his time. I've been bugging him over the last week. Let me share my screen, and I'll demo one little thing, just in case if you're a quick access pop-up user, or you have a need where you're trying to share your code with someone else. No, this is what I was working on before. So I'm going to come in here to say customize. Well, let me first show it. All right, so I'll say bimodal. So this is going to drop in a snippet. No, actually this one. This is going to drop in a snippet. And see these paths, right? So this is b:/SPSS macros, right? So when we go look at this and customize, what's interesting about this is, notice this says I have this thing here called SPSS, right? It's not here. But what I did was I created a personal, what was it, a personal variable, Sean, or user variable? Okay, sorry. To me, it's a personal variable, whatever. And this way, I can define it somewhere else, and then when it sends it out, it swaps it out in my snippet for me. And what's really cool about this is I define this as an environment variable where I can go set it, and then if I go give my quick access pop-up, I can extract it, or I can just give them the program and tell them, you go define your variable, point to where you have those files, and it'll swap them out in the snippets for you. So it really, to me, opened up a lot of doors, because now I can, between that and using a similar approach for the icons, I'll be able to create a version of quick access pop-up that I can give to people, and it will run on their computer, but they don't have to do any programming, right? Which is not programming, but building of the GUI and stuff.
Coding.
Yeah.
User variables are also interesting when you share. You can have a shared menu in quick access pop-up. Two users can use the same menu from a shared folder, so Dropbox, something like that. And the Dropbox root folder is not always at the same place on different machines. So user variables allows to create a Dropbox variable that you can define on each machine having different path, and this will make the menu work on all these machines. Yeah, for example, here the Dropbox has been automatically detected by quick access pop-up when you first run it. It scans if it can find path for Dropbox, Google Drive, a few others like that. Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I could see how, if you're sharing this with other people, it allows you to, which is what I got around years ago with my B drive. Let me bring this guy over. So if I go up one, and no, now I don't know what it's doing. How did it get? Oh, because it opened. Sorry, it actually opened the actual path. I thought my shortcut was to the Dropbox, but so you'll see I have a B drive, right? And that is I create a fake drive called the B drive, and it's an actually shortcut to my Dropbox, and that way I do that on all my computers, and that way all my paths are the same, and they're all synced. So
I thought it was a floppy disk. You have to be old enough to know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Especially the larger ones. Hey, I remember my dad using like the punch cards,
Yeah.
like the
My grandfather
way.
used-
My first job was traveling punch card from programmers to the IT
Oh, that's funny.
machines. Yeah.
Yeah, we had my dad. He works at the University of Kentucky, and when they moved away from those, they still had like probably thousands of them laying around. So they used them
Sure. Yeah.
as like sticky notes, basically. They would use them to like take notes on, just to get rid of them.
Father had them at home. Yeah, that was he had. They're the ones he had were about this big. They were yellow, and on one side, you could you'd punch holes in them, and that would be your program, right? You'd run it through this thing, and it's kind of like Braille in that sense. It would find the whole do this.
And it's a line of a program, not a program.
Yeah,
There's
you need a
pile
lot.
of cards to have a program. It could be very large.
So
It was COBOL, the language.
Oh yeah, yeah.
an interesting thing which we can discuss here is because I remember talking to my mentor from statistics and stuff, right? And he did use punch cards. He was telling me about it, but he said back then you would basically write your program like we're talking about, and then submit it, and it would take overnight for it to actually run. So
Yeah, in fact, it was my job to take the card from the programmers, to travel it in a chariot in France, something that you can go around with piles of cards, and then put it somewhere where someone was taking the cards, putting in the computer, running, producing a printed output. And my job was also to take back the cards and the report to the programmer. Then the day after would see that there's a comma missing in this line.
Yeah, that's where I was going with that. Was he was saying it was so quote unquote risky in the sense of it doesn't work, that you really spent a lot of time thinking about your program. You didn't just throw something there and try it, right? And it was a very different methodology and approach. Nowadays, like what we actually at SPSS, most people at statistics tool, they use the GUI and they're clicking stuff and everything is so fast, but they don't
try
really know
and try and error. Yes.
yeah.
And back then,
but
you
then
used to, if you made a mistake, I think it was like you would like just use tape to fix like if you made an extra hole, you would just tape over the hole to make it stop.
The early versions of whiteout, right? Was
Yeah.
like actually early tape.
They would just
That's awesome.
literally physical tape to fix their code. I forget what they called it when they did that.
Fixing a hole.
Yeah.
Yeah, they get the spackle out. So that is interesting though. Yeah. So back on topic is let me look at my stuff of what else I've been working on. I finished my email algorithm. I don't know if we want to. Let me see if there's anything in here that's I can't share. Yeah, I can. Let's start right here. So let me share. So I'm not going to go dissect it line by line, other than I'm at a high level. So it first goes and pulls a list of anyone who's like downloaded any new thing, and I have email addresses for. And then I have a list because this is outside the loop, right? Because I don't want to have this inside my loop because that'd be stupid. So I have my bad term and then my questionable terms, and then I start looping over it. This just updates my taskbar so I can see kind of the process. And this is building the list. Here is where we start. Now, this is a regex that says, hey, if it's not syntactically a proper email address, like I'm going to give it, and the higher the score this thing ends up getting, the more likely it is that I don't even bother checking it, right? So a score of 0 is your best. So automatically, if it's not that, I give it a score, and it's an arbitrary number, right, of 65. And then I start looping over the bad terms, and every time it finds, whether it's in the email or the name, if it finds one of those bad terms, any of these guys, it'll add 25 points for every one it finds, right? And so it loops over all of those. Then we loop over the questionable terms where I'm adding 2 in both the email or name. So it's much lower, right? If any of these, it's not a big, because, hey, some people's name is Joe, right? But it's still just kind of nudging it a little bit. And then if it begins with an A, a D, an F, or an S, I again, very small nudge of 2 points. And that's just because I've noticed people putting in fake email addresses, they often start them with one of those.
It's probably because that's where their hand's usually resting.
Right. And then I did some stuff, if it's below, and I thought about breaking these out separately, giving different weights, but if it's less than, if the domain, I think this is the domain, yeah, is less than 2 or more than 4, I give it a 20. If it's, this actually isn't domain, this next one is the, what is that called? There's the
domain. The .com, yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, so I give that one a score of 20, and then the user account, which is, I don't know if that's the proper term for it, but everything like the Joe at, right? Everything to the left of the at sign. If that's either 1 character or more than 12, I give it a 10. So again, arbitrary weights, and if the character count, what character count email is greater than 6? Character count email. Oh, this is if they have more than 6 of any letter in their email address. So if A was in there 6 times, then I add 15 to it, or 7 times, excuse me. Or if there's repeats, so any letter is repeated more than twice, I'm giving it a score of 15. And then, so here, if the score is, right now it's an arbitrary number. If it's over 100, then I send it off. No, this one actually just removes it. I think that just it. As I say, it's too high. I'm not even going to bother with it. Add them to my suppression list and remove it. If it's more than 30, then I will display it. Do I want to keep it? Yes or no? And if I do keep it, if I don't keep it, it adds it to the remove list. But if I do, then we do this API call to habuco.com. I don't hub yeah, whatever. And it does an actual email verification test and returns a score, but that costs money. So that's why I was doing all this work beforehand. And it's a fraction of a penny per email address. But this took me a while to work through. But finally, I'm done with it.
Well, now what you got to do is make this work with every language out there.
We have a question about the Chrome library on YouTube.
Oh boy.
I'm not familiar with this library, but maybe you can help.
I'm not either.
I don't use it. I honestly think it's more problems than it's worth sometimes, because it's really a great program, very diverse, but it is super complicated. So I think we've talked about it before. I use AutoHotkey. Well, in a situation like with Chrome, you can't use comms. So what I do is, if I only need the program to work in Chrome to do whatever, then I just use Auto Control Manager, I think's the add-on extension or whatever, and I just do simple JavaScript. And if you know AutoHotkey, like jumping over to JavaScript's not too bad, because a lot of it's kind of looks the same, at least for like controlling stuff. If I want to pass data from outside of Chrome, then I'll use like AutoHotkey to put it into the clipboard, and then have Auto Manager grab from the clipboard with like a clip weight or something.
Yeah, and
It's 2 languages, but it's honestly simpler than using Chrome AHK.
well, here's the thing. If you're using Chrome AHK, you are, for the most part, still programming in JavaScript, because that's what you need to do in order to really get a lot of the elements and do stuff with it. Having said that, it also frequently has issues with getting stuck in these loops.
Mm-hmm.
And we've tried using it, and that's where Isaiah who RaptorX, who I'm having a call with Saturday. Hopefully he'll at some point be coming back, but finally we're going to have a call. But he was the one that did the stuff most recently for my channel, because I just don't use it. And even though he is a really good programmer, he still had problems with it getting hung up on things. And then Demetrius did some stuff for us, and he also had similar issues. And so I've just said, you know what, which is actually the auto control that Thom mentioned. It's an extension in Chrome. He showed it to me. It's pretty cool, and you can programmatically connect AutoHotkey to it, or you can have it wait for a hotkey to trigger, and then to Tom's point, you're programming in JavaScript, but it's pretty strict. You know, it's not that hard for the basics to be able to control the page, right? And so it's pretty cool for that.
It's a few lines of code in JavaScript to click a button or fill out text, and yeah, like you don't even need AutoHotkey, but yeah. And you just use the clipboard to pass variables between. The simplest way.
I'll share because I have a bookmark. It's on my list of videos that I have to do. Here's the link to the API. I've actually, of course, after Thom mentioned it to me, I started digging into it, and I wrote them, and I had a couple of questions for him. But they suggested either using the clipboard or writing it to a file and then reading from the file. Here's the configuration part where this is the browser back button will do a certain thing, this is where I get a little confused on it. It's a pretty, you can use GUIs, but what I love, and there we go. Here's my script. So this is the JavaScript stuff where it's doing things, and I just never know. Like that just seems weird to me. But here I'm getting data from different elements on the page, shoving them into variables. Then I create an object in JavaScript, this bars variable, and I shove it into an object, and then this is how to set that to the clipboard, that bars variable to the clipboard, and then in AutoHotkey, which is what Thom mentioned, you can monitor for the clipboard when the clipboard updates or something, and then suck it in and do what you want with it, right? So that would be how you'd be pulling it out. But it's on my to-do list to make some videos on this because the great thing is it's very stable, right? It doesn't have these problems of the looping stuff. Sorry, Thom, what were you gonna say?
Just something I've always done too with clipboard. You were saying like, you have your AutoHotkey script waiting to see like when a clipboard change is made. Well, what if I'm doing other stuff, where I don't want it always to do there? With something like this, I'll include like the first word for the clipboard will be like AHK, and then I'll do like a clipboard wait if clipboard contains AHK in it, then run this code. That way it's not triggering when I'm doing just normal stuff too. Just something I've always done as a kind of a hackery way to only trigger it when I actually want it to.
Yeah, what I would do is add one more layer to that and say, hey, only monitor, and if it's text, right, then if it's text, let's take a look at the text, and if the first 5 letters, or whatever, the AutoHotkey, I'm not going to split it at 7 maybe, if the first 7 are that, then, that's one way to control. But for me, when I'm doing this stuff, I'm doing it. So I understand 100% your point, Thom, but for me, that's something I would add later of like, hey, let's make it a little more where I can not be as concerned.
It just depends on the user and what they're doing.
The other really cool thing, which you can see right here, is I said, hey, use it. So even that this is the file, but I said use an external file, right? So what's really cool about that is I could use AutoHotkey to write this JavaScript file for me, and I can dynamically update it, right? So that's what I really thought was really cool as well, right? Is I can dynamically, write to a file, and then this tool is going to dynamically read what's there. So it's pretty cool in that sense of what I wanted was an API to programmatically connect the two without saving it as a file or using the clipboard, and they said, unfortunately, they don't have that functionality.
Yeah, the cool thing about the external file too is kind of for if you're in like a corporate situation, it's a great way that if you're going to be sharing your program, is to have the script on like a shared hard drive where that you can automatically just have it point there. That way, people don't have to. Every single person has to download that text file. You can have one and share it across like your whole business, because that was something I did that was really, really convenient. So yeah, the external file thing's great, just for even pushing updates out to like your whole company with just a single file. What's it called? Auto control. Just auto control. Okay. But I feel like when you go in the app, it says auto control manager, so I always get confused on what it's actually called.
I remember there's when you go to install it, it says, "Hey, do you want to always have something running?" Like it'll load something. If we looked at my task manager, we would see. I launched. I'm trying to. Didn't launch. Let me launch the auto hotkey version.
That's brilliant podcast. Number 257.
Okay. So see this auto control executable. So even if I close Chrome and stuff, this is still running. I'm thinking, Tom, this is that manager that you're thinking about. There's a program that would run in the background that allows it stays running, right? It's one thing I didn't like about it at first, but I'm like, whatever, it's one more program. It's not a big program, so who cares? But that's what I'm thinking might be, what you were looking at, remembering. You don't have to install that. You can have it where it's just an extension and it doesn't always have that running in the background. But if you want to be able to hit a hotkey, it needs to be running, and then it can launch Chrome or it can go do the stuff. And if I remember right, it can even have Chrome invisible, and do the stuff.
Mm-hmm. Oh, another good thing too is, depending on what you're doing, a lot of stuff you don't even have to code. For example, like that clipboard copy thing, it's literally a built-in action that you can just click and you don't even have to code.
Which is ironic because I know you'll appreciate it. Like, I don't like that. It annoys me because I get very confused. I'm like, well, wait a minute. How do I click these buttons? I'd rather just stick with the programming and the code.
Oh, yeah.
You're right. For people who don't program, it's
easier.
Training wheels. Yeah, it's a plus. Don't get me wrong. That's just for me. I'd rather it didn't exist. Oh, Matthew just wrote a note saying he had to bail. Yeah, it's a cool. It's just I haven't. I want to make sure when I record the video because you're programming in JavaScript. I have ducks in a row, and I just haven't spent time to have a real world. Because I used to web scrape a lot, and now it's pretty rare. So I just haven't done a lot.
Yeah, same.
Also, fun fact: recently found a bug in HK Interpreter where using the include in certain cases causes comments to be loaded in memory. That's I'm not sure what you mean by loaded in memory. Is what would they do? How did you even discover they were loaded in memory unless you're doing memory scans?
I would say memories. Looking at memories is such a pain. Can be pretty a pain.
And did you report it? Get them on? Hopefully you did.
Where's the API in auto control?
I think it's in one of those links that I put it in my chat, but let me see. Yeah, here I'll throw it in Zoom. That's why I bookmarked them because it seemed like the things were in disparate places, which is another thing of that's why I like QAP is when things that you're working with aren't natively in the same spot, having a place where you can put them and kind of bookmark them is a great way to avoid that confusion.
Yeah, I haven't used it in so long, I forget like how most of it works. I don't think I've ever had to use the API before, so I'm kind of curious how that would all work out. If it's worth it.
Oh, the interpreter. I discovered that with Cheat Engine. Interesting. Yeah, because generally speaking, you go to compile something or run it, it strips out the comments, right? So yeah. Anything else exciting going on? I'm trying to look through my other stuff I've been working on.
I have like 20 videos already done. It feels so good. I won't have to shoot a video for like 2 months if I don't feel like it. Yeah, I haven't been working on much because I've done all that. I'm trying to remember if I have anything fun.
I finished editing, it was like 5 hours of video of Maestriath and Hellbent and I working through classes and objects, and it's edited down. It's probably more like 3.5. Not overly productive, but hey, if you can put it on the background and listen to it, it's you can learn a little bit more about objects and a little bit on classes. I wish we talked more about classes, but it was something from like 4 or 5 years ago that I was looking for something else and happened to stumble upon it. I'm like, I never shared these. So I went through and edited them a bit there was some PII, personal information, on the screen, so I had to edit it down a bit where to take care of it. But that was just painful because I, of course, had to watch everything and edit them. And then thankfully, Jean, because when you and I were doing a couple of the QAP videos, and you pointed out my Zoom issues, I finally learned a much better, easier way to deal with the zooming. So it shouldn't be a problem going forward. But yeah, editing.
A resolve issue or resolve?
It was a Joe issue.
Software? Yeah.
It was a Joe issue using Resolve of just when you zoom, you need to put in 2 keyframes, I think they're called, because the first one says start zooming, and then the second one, wherever it is that this is where stop zooming, and then you say how much you want to zoom, right?
And it will change the speed of the zoom depending on the space between.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I was putting one spot, hey, do this and then do that at the end, and I thought I was zooming out, but it was using that whole thing to do it. But what I realized later was if I just slice, for lack of a better term, if I put a break in the video, I can just click there and adjust the zoom on the video, and as long as I don't care about the fading zooming in, it's a breeze, and it's so much easier. So it'll be a little choppy, but I'm like, I don't think most of the people watching my videos care if it's choppy. Is the content good? Can I see what we're trying to see? Yeah.
I still have to learn Resolve now that I cannot use Premiere anymore.
Right.
I lost this license.
Yeah. Thom, what do you use for editing?
If it's a simple video where I don't really need to edit, and I just need to add like my intro and my outro, I literally use the Windows Photo program. Just because it's so easy, it takes 10 seconds to do it. But if I do need to do any editing, I use Lightworks. Yeah, it's pretty good. It's free. Well, no, there's a paid version, which I do have the paid version. But it's really great. I can add overlays, text stuff I want, zoom in. It does a lot.
Several years ago, I had Maestria help me build a GUI with using FFmpeg, and so you can put your intro. It has a list of intros on the left and a list of outros if you put them on the right, and then you can select like an intro and an outro or just an intro, whatever you want, and then drag a bunch of videos, and it goes and it concatenates them for you, and it just cranks them out. And I'm like, oh man, like you said, if all you're doing is, and it fades them like fades the intro, like it starts off and then fades it down and then brings it back up for the middle and then fades it, the other one. But FFmpeg is such an amazing program.
Thom, what's the name of the software you use?
Lightworks.
Lightworks?
Yep. I think it's
Light or
yeah.
Lit?
Light works. But I really liked it. Because I messed around with, Resolve and stuff, and I was like, Lightworks was just so more, there's less of a learning curve.
Yeah, it's a bit of a learning curve. Once you get the hang of DaVinci, it's an amazing free editor. But I actually bailed on it. I tried using it, and then I bailed on it, and then I came back to it again. I was so glad I did, because now I'm decently comfortable in it. But yeah, at first it was, and actually today, and I think I included, because I think both you guys are just on my list of people who might edit video, so you got CC'd on it. But there was a great way to animate stuff without doing all this crazy animation, and it's like 5 seconds, and you can animate, bring in an image and have it float in or dissolve in or whatever. And I'm like, oh my god, it's so much easier than using the Fusion part of it.
Yeah, I saw that email right before we jumped on, so I didn't really see what it was about yet. I think
there's a free version, and
okay.
you can subscribe for $10 a month or $20.
See, I
a
hate
month. More features.
all this subscription stuff.
Yeah, everyone.
Back when programs were free, or you bought them once and you got it for life.
By the way, and I see Anamon wrote he uses Sony Vegas Pro, which I used a lifetime ago. It was just a nice, easy editor, to use overall. But I was just saying, because it's not done yet. But let me share my screen again. Oh crap! I need to.
I think I just surpassed 1,500 subscribers.
Nice, it's awesome.
Like, I literally think it's a little laggy with updating the data, but looks like either today or tomorrow.
Well, I'm gonna go unsubscribe just to mess you up. So this, for now, this is the start of it, is an updated version of Automate My Task.
That looks
and
nice.
So notice the button highlights, and there are tooltips. And so Hellbent has been working on it for me, and he made it where I could actually, let's go ahead and do it. Let me I'm going to change my DPI on. So it's this
yeah, that's
monitor.
very clean looking. I like that.
Change this. So see how now it doesn't look crazy. He did it so it adjusts to the DPI, which is amazing. The problem is, which is why I haven't released it yet, is if we go to do a capture now when the DPI is on, you can see like it's not it's off, right? So I'm going to need to do some math to get it to where it's correct. But if when I turn back off the DPI, everything it's working very well. Come on. There it is. So let me F5 and find this. Yay, found it. Anyway, and I don't know what else he did, but it definitely is working better even in Chrome and everything. So once I fix that last little bit of that offset, I'll have a new version of it, which I was back to the whole thing of where you guys were talking about subscriptions. I was like, I might actually sell it for not a subscription, but a one-time fee of like $5, $4 or something. Just to recoup, because I'm paying Hellbent, and I paid Macer to develop it, so maybe I think now it's good enough where like I can ask
Get it out
something
there.
for it. But yeah, I'm excited to get it to be taking into account that DPI, and I'll actually, now that it's even more reliable, I might start using it more for simple stuff.
Oh yeah. I still sometimes use the macro recorder for AHK. If I just need to do something once, it's like, okay, I'm never gonna use this script again, and it's super simple. I'll just be like, click, okay, because I know I'm gonna delete the script afterwards because I don't need it after whatever I'm doing.
And we haven't released it yet, but with both of you guys, I think it'd be since at least if someone has someone to demonstrate or ask a question on, great. But the other day, Jackie and I did a podcast discussing how it's a balancing act, adding new features, to program to your tools. and Jean in particular with QAP, I was curious if you would care to comment at all about how your thought process. How do you decide what is going to probably be used by enough of your user base, where you'll add it? Is, do you give that thought? How do you decide?
I have an Excel table that I call roadmap that tells me what I will work on next, and I have two columns: the effort and I don't remember how I called it, but the effort and the useful, or not sure in English the right word.
Yeah, it's fine. I get it.
So, and also, will I use it myself?
I was going to ask you if that was one of them. Yeah.
But I do a lot of things that I never use myself, but I understand that there are benefits to using them. So I have about maybe 60 or 80 items on this list that are all on the Quick Access Pop-Up Forum, and I can show you where the visible part of it.
40 of them are mine, by the way.
Yeah, I would say that.
I would say we were adding a bunch last week.
Yeah. So there's here you can enter suggestions here. So when user make a suggestion that is retained, most of them are. Sometimes it's just something that is doable without changing the software. Then I put it here on the wished item. So I have 2 pages of them. So a lot of them. And when I start working on some of them, I put it here in progress, so I can ask users that made the suggestion to comment or just validate some things. And when it's done, it's moved to the done items. So here you have all the items that were done, and there are, I don't know how many per page, maybe 50 per page. So that's how I do that. And so I have my own copy in Excel where I can just sort it and by weight of useful or effort. And sometimes effort is very hard to guess.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the way I do it. I take note of every suggestion. I will not be able to do all of them, but sometimes I group them. So I will work, for example, some feature for Total Commander, which is a file manager that is working well with Quick Access Pop-Up or Directory Opus. So when I do something, I will group a few features that will be related to that. Yeah. So what was the purpose of your chat with Jackie on that?
Well, we were just discussing, should you add anything and everything? And at what point, how do you make that decision of, because it's somewhat of a balancing act, right? Because every time you add something more, first off, and I'm sure, Jean, you'll be the first to agree with this, you can't please everybody, right? When you change something, you'll those people who ask for it might be very happy with it, but to some degree, there'll be other people who are like, oh, now it's either more complex or I can't find something, whatever.
Yeah, and for example, Quick Access Pop-Up over time became a power user tool, not a regular user tool, because a lot of things were added that require some understanding of Windows. So that's
Well, that's
a
actually
decision that I didn't make. I just added things because I was finding them interesting and useful. So I added, and at some point it lost the simplicity that it could have at the beginning.
Right.
At the beginning, it was only folders, not documents. So you could only add folders in your menu. So it was very simple, but limited in what it could do compared to what it does today.
Yeah, that was actually one of the things we came up with was, hey, possibly consider having either multiple versions of your tool. One is a super simple one that just does X, and then you have like your power user version, right, which has all the bells and whistles. And that way, if it's easy to keep them still kind of using the same code.
At the beginning, yeah. If it was planned, so at some point you could have branches and some features being shared in the 2 branches or 3, and others being strictly for the more advanced version. But since it was not planned, so I now have the full thing, what I would have to do is to remove. And removing things in the software is not as fun
You're not
as
just
adding features. Yeah.
One
Yeah.
thing I've done actually kind of to go with the simplicity thing is when I had created a program, I did the whole simplicity thing because I realized, people will, if there's too many features, they'll either never learn them or they'll forget about them because, it'll be like months down the road and they'll completely forget about them. I've done a profile thing where you can do like a file drop down menu and it'll say like profile mode, I think it was. And it had like a simple and advanced version, and it was basically two programs, but I put them into like a single file versus having different versions because I wouldn't want to do that personally.
So a really good example here is in QAP, I have my FFmpeg menu, right? Each one of these are different tools that I can animate a video from a GIF from a video. I can process through. So this one actually shrinks it. Actually, it got some of my videos today down to like 10% of the size of the original one. It's really crazy. I can flip it. I can use FFmpeg to download from YouTube. I can use it to do an overlay. I can automatically increase or lower the volume. I can rip the MP3 files out, which I use this for the podcast. But each of these, I could have built one kind of QAP tool, like in the sense it does all these things. It's a massive GUI that has all this stuff. But I thought, you know what? The people that would probably be using these things are very rarely overlapping. And so I thought, you know what? I'm going to keep it very simple and just have where I launch different versions of it. And like this one here, this one is a little more complex, which of course disappeared. What happened?
So advanced, your computer can't handle it.
There we go. Yeah. I have a few options in this one. So you can choose the speed, you can choose the encoding, the audio bit rate, but you just drag the videos here and it loops over them. And it appends whatever this is to it. But it shrinks my files on average between half the file size down to, like I said, like 10%. It's crazy, and it's pretty fast. But this is one GUI, and then I have the other ones they have their own GUIs, right? That's the whole thing that I'm doing with AutoHotkey is actually creating GUIs for a command-driven command line tool because no one wants to keep going in there and, editing the command line stuff over and over and over.
Yeah, it was pretty cool, especially the suppression thing because you showed me that a long time ago. I was like, this is awesome. But yeah, it's surprising how much it does.
Yeah, it's a great tool.
I mean, for me, I don't know what kind of camera you got. I got like a 4K. So I'm like, I don't need to do coding videos in 4K. So I'll downgrade it. And it takes like half the video.
Well, okay, John. Thanks for dropping by.
See you next week.
Yep.
Yeah, see you next week.
Yeah. Thanks. Bye-bye.
For me, right now, still, I have a sucky internet, and so every time I go to upload a video, if I can get it from 500 megs down to 100 megs, it's a fifth the size that I have to upload. And man, and you can't tell. It's crazy. You can't tell the difference in the quality. So
Yeah.
it's really nice to be able to shrink it down and have it small, and of course my storage space on my hard drives, right? Because I do keep.
Yeah, it's been super helpful. Yeah, I don't need to record in 4K. How many people are watching coding videos in 4K that need to see it?
I remember watching a guy. He was doing training and stuff, and he kept losing signal, and the buffering and stuff. And I told him, like, dude, the video is amazing, but we don't need 4K, dude. I mean, like, your system can't handle it. It's not helping.
The funny thing is the other day, I don't know how I've never realized that you can do this on YouTube, is when you upload a video, I always do them one by one.
Oh, yeah.
But you can do a bunch of them. So I was like, oh, I'll go ahead and upload 20 at a time. And I was like, dear God, I'm never doing that again. I was like, maybe 2.
Yeah.
Even though it's doing it one by one, it took forever.
Yeah. Well, and you have to plan to have all your videos probably in the same spot, right? Because that way you can group them and drag.
Yeah.
But yeah, I
was like, never doing
Because
that
when we
again.
do our podcasts, usually we do try to do 2 at a time, and so I'll drag both. But you're right, if they're really long, you're asking for trouble.
See, I'm lucky. I'm in Delaware. We have the second best internet in the world behind South Korea. So our internet's pretty decent. And I don't even have the best package that's available out there, but still do. I've never had issues with, Zoom calls, TV streaming, all that kind of stuff all at the same time.
Someday we have fiber runs right in front of my property. They just don't have a way for us to connect to it yet.
That's how my grandmother's was. They didn't get high speed anything for the longest time because they live in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, we're out there.
Any questions on your side? I don't got anything on my side.
No, and I gotta get going here in a bit. Let's see if there's anything in my list of stuff that I've been working on that might be relevant to share.
Yeah, it's been a slow week for me just because I've uploaded so many videos. I haven't been doing anything in auto hockey really. So I did a face detection video in Python, and I did one in auto hotkeys. And here's another thing too: is like if you can do an auto hotkey, sometimes it's easier because the Python code was like double the amount to do a face detection from a picture than it was to do an auto hotkey.
And I'm trying to remember the name of it, but I used an API, and you just submit the picture via the API, and it's doing all the smart stuff.
Yeah,
right.
That's what I'm doing.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm using the Windows API. I didn't even know this, but it has face detection built into Windows 10.
Oh, cool.
So
I didn't know that.
don't even need like internet or anything. At least I assume you don't. I never tested it. But yeah, I was like, oh wow, I can't believe this face detection's built in to Windows 10. I don't know if that's a good thing or a scary thing. Like, why is it there?
Well, because they're using it for tablets as well.
Yeah.
And stuff, right. So I think that's
Like unlock. Yeah, that's true.
maybe computer vision. Maybe that was the one I was using. So this, which is also, so again, as we said earlier, right, the API you're talking about is a local programmatic API versus I was talking about a web service API where you have to, the only thing I didn't like is you have to automate sending a binary file, the picture to them and then process it. But yeah, it was
The only thing that was kind of weird too was in Python, you have to convert it to black and white first before it does face detection. But in AutoHotkey, you didn't have to do that unless the API is doing it and I don't know it's doing it.
probably is. Yeah.
So I thought that was interesting. But yeah, now I'm doing a video, or I was working on some code. I had a few issues. I figured I'd take a break for a few days and try again. But I'm doing a face detection where it can detect the difference between my cats and say like, cat A is in front of camera, cat B is in front of camera. And that's more of pixel searching. But that's hard to do. Like, I really want to try to get that to work because there's, if you go variate too much, it can just give you false positives. And then, depending on the lighting, it can be a bit of a pain.
By the way, and I'll put the link here in the Zoom. Well, I put it in YouTube and here. This was a webinar we did a long time ago now. Back in 2018, where Jackie demonstrated us a class, maybe, or a function. I forget. This isn't it right here, but this is just something I did. That's just a terrible thing to have there. But the video, he walks, or maybe this. This is that he uses GDI, but in the webinar video, so you watch the first hour, right? It'll show how because he was doing image detection, but he was keeping the files locally, and he wanted to shrink them down, and he was able to shrink them down and lose the colors somewhat, and then very quickly and reliably check on the screen for these images, and it was really fast and very small file size. It was to me a really interesting webinar.
Yeah, the GDIP's pretty good. I've used that for other stuff. I can't remember what, but I know that's a very popular script. Probably one of the most popular libraries, at least.
Well,
Does
these
so
buttons
much.
and stuff. That's what. Oh, this is my version. Never mind. These are actually Windows controls, right?
Yeah.
But the new version that Hellbent is using, he's using GDI to draw the buttons, right? And to draw. So this text here isn't really like like I can't highlight it, right? That's an image, and so yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I've done images before with buttons. It's really nice. Definitely makes it a lot better looking. That was one of the first videos I think I ever did.
You don't have to worry about the compression stuff and everything when they shrink down and everything because you're literally drawing them, and so it handles it no problem. All right, well,
I had this guy
if no one
say,
else has, oh yeah,
sorry, it would be nice if we could demo some simple yet powerful automation examples in real life. I mean, that's kind of what our videos are for. If I'm understanding right.
yeah, but well, I'm just saying, give us an example of something.
Yeah.
I mean, I have over 1,000 videos now, and then I have, I'm sure 5 times that in scripts automating stuff. So
Okay.
it's kind of hard to randomly select something here. I'm going to demonstrate this.
Yeah, it's kind of like, oh, we kind of did it on the video. But if someone has a question where they want us to like kind of dive more deep into a thing, maybe we didn't explain something very well in the one video or you didn't understand it, definitely let us know and we can expand.
Yeah, and what because I blocked this guy from my channel just because he was being a dick. Sorry, but there's no way to put it. But he was complaining that like we don't come to these share kind of like with whoever that person's asking the question. I'm like, look, the goal of these meetings are to help users with their code, right? Answer their questions, not to show off stuff that we're doing, right? I mean
That's filler.
Yeah, I'm like, yeah, that's right. It could be filler, but I'm like, I'm not here to be bragging on what I've done, right? That's the goal is here's my time to help people, right? So that's what I come to with these meetings is ready to help people. And I'm not knocking your question, whoever had asked that. It's just, hey, ask a question, right? How do you automate an email? How do you automate Excel? Whatever, right? Whatever it is you want.
You've messed around with this a lot. He said, for example, I'm a landlord in Canada managing over 100 rentals. One thing I am really hoping I can achieve is to reply emails of inquiries automatically.
Sure.
So I've done some email videos with.
Can you ask him real quickly? Is he using Outlook? Because I have a.
Oh yeah, what's your email thing? Yeah, because I've done it with Outlook, but not as much as in depth as you have, just because I don't have Outlook.
Well, I have a super. If it's Outlook, I have a super simple tip that's has nothing to do with programming, but it's a great way to streamline writing emails to people, especially a standardized email.
And depending what he's trying to do, I remember what it was. I did a Gmail video where it connects to the API to automatically send emails from, your script. So that's another possibility.
Let me demonstrate just because it's anyone who else ever watches this, it's a great tip. So I have a master's from market research from the University of Georgia. I'm helping the current students there do interviews, just practice and stuff. And then I remember like, you know what? When you're applying for a lot of jobs or you're doing a lot of interviews and you constantly have to write the same like thank you letters or whatever it is, right? I said, look, if you're using Outlook, what you do is you come in, create a new email. Of course, opens on the other screen. Make sure you get it from the account. Like I want it to come from a certain account. Write your email. What I like to do is I'll do something like this, and the X's is a placeholder, right? And I'll maybe even change the font color to remind me. So you write your email, and let's say, do I have? I wanted to attach my resume, right? Whatever it is, right? You get this all done, and then you come up here to say File, Save As. Come in here and say Outlook Template. When you click this, you're going to see the location go from My Documents to this stupid folder. All you have to do is hit back, and then you're back to where you were, right? So I'm going to hit save. Let's save it to my. I don't even know how to get to my documents. I'm going to save it to my desktop. Hit save. Now, all I have to do is come in here. See this? Thank you. I can just double click this bad boy, and it's going to open. It's going to have that attachment. It's going to have everything for me, right? So it's a super easy way to have a default email, because you could have like your whole reply there, like the guy was saying, this default reply, right? You could have it, automatically there, or of course make a hot string to populate it. But this will handle the rich text format and stuff, which is much trickier in AutoHotkey to have color coding and this and that. But yeah, it's one of my go-tos of like, hey, if I'm writing a bunch of the same emails, but I want to be able to tweak them, because I can just keep reopening this thing over and over and change, that name, manually. Again, there's better ways to do it, but this is a super simple, easy way that anyone can do, whether you know how to program or not.
Yeah, and depending, like you're saying, if the data's, if it's just going to be the exact same sentence or whatever every single time, that's easy way.
Well,
or if you're going to be
and then
using variables.
you can add to it though, right? Sorry to interrupt you,
Yeah.
Tom, but you can, you open it, you have your default, but then you still type in a personalized message.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So it's a blended approach. Sorry for cutting you off, but was my point.
Oh, no, you're good. No, I was just saying, like, to throw in, like, do it, like, with a hot string, I think is a great way, too, if you are putting in, using variables or something. You could always make, I one time made something like what you're talking about, but it was random. So it just was to make it seem like I basically had a bunch of different ones, and I used random. If variable equals 1, use this hot string as a way to not seem like I was sending the same email to clients every single time that was exactly handwritten out.
And then I'll throw in the chat here in case you want to share it with him. But if you go to theautomator.com/outlook, I'm not sure. Let me share this. I have different videos here on automating an HTML email with Outlook. We did a webinar. This is the webinar here in the hour 1 and 2, but this is a great example of interacting with Excel, but in this one I have like 5 different video scripts on the webinar for automating with Excel and being able to do a mail merge, basically. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I shared it over to the chat. I do have to bounce, so for this guy, if you have more questions, there's going to be a link in the description when it goes live on the channel. Well, not live, but saves, where you can answer a survey, ask a question, where you can upload your code, or give us time to prep, or if you're going to mix the next video. So definitely check that out.
Yeah, and just put a request in saying, hey, I'd like to learn about X, like if it's emails or, and what I thought you were going to say, by the way, was, because I'm a landlord as well, right? And
yeah, I thought you would be good for this question.
well, automating texting is also it's pretty easy to do, whether you use AutoHotkey or just use TextMagick as a service you can pay for. But you can automate texting people, which is, to me, like, being a landlord, if you have a lot of places, man, it'd be really great to be able to remind people today's the 1st or whatever, right? I mean, there's a lot of things that really help with texting, that people really read their text.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've done, it might have been the same video with email, how to text. I did both.
I saw it.
Yeah, how to send text with AutoHotkey without opening anything. Then I kind of did the reverse where I used, it's probably going to trigger right now, or my Echo, using it to trigger stuff kind of through a program. So almost sending like text to the computer through your Alexa device.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, and then I did one where I was showing how there was an API service that I could take a phone number and it would go and look up the carrier and then automate converting the email to a text or vice versa. I honestly forget which way it was, but yeah, there's lots of cool stuff you can do. Text Magic is a great tool. So I use Pushbullet because I'm on an Android and I can automate texting through my phone, which is awesome. So if you have an Android, it's great.
I've used that
if you
before.
don't have an Android and you have an iPhone, then you can't easily automate through your phone. But Text Magic is a service that they have an API as well that you can program around. But they have a downloadable program that you can do mail merges and automate texting people. And there's a cost, right? Don't get me wrong. Compared to that, Pushbullet's great because it's like $40 a year, and then it just uses your own phone service, which shouldn't really cost you anything. So that's what I use for my stuff. It's awesome.
Nice.
All right, everyone. Thank you. Thanks, Tom.
See
Good
ya.
talking to you. We'll see you next week.
Alright, like I said, anybody who has any questions, definitely check the survey once this video gets saved. And there's a link there where you can ask questions, upload scripts so we can see them. That way, if you're missing next week's meeting or you want to give us, some chance if it's something complicated to have something prepared, definitely let us know. Alright guys, I will see you all